grieving man like John Pollock. He wished he could turn back time, stay at home more, and be hands-on. Day and night, he prayed for God to give him another chance to be with his daughters. He swore that he would never say no if they asked for another scoop of ice cream. He would never be too tired to tell 25 more bedtime stories, and to just be their knight in shining armor, always ready to protect. Florence, his spouse, knew well that no matter how faithful John was, their daughters Joanna and Jacqueline would never come back. They were both killed in a terrible, terrible accident. But John thought that there has to be a way to bring the girls back to their families. Not too long after, his prayers would be answered. Hey! My name is Detective Maple. If you like true crime stories and unsolved mysteries, hit that subscribe button because I'm here to bring tons your way. So drape your blanket over your head and let's get spookin'. In the 1960s, Florence Pollock would give birth to their first baby girl named Joanna. Little Joanna was a breath of fresh air from their first 4 children, all of whom were boys. 5 years after Joanna was born, they would have another daughter named Jacqueline. John and Florence would raise their kids in Hexham, Northumberland in England. John and Florence Pollock owned this dairy and basic food delivery business, like the entrepreneurs that they were. Besides, they had no choice but to work their butts off most of the time. They have 6 mouths to feed, all of whom would need to eat more and more food as the years passed. So no matter how much they wanted to be involved in raising their children, make their lunch, take them to school, or play with them, they did not have the luxury to. Gladly, the Pollock children's grandma is on the rescue. She mostly took care of the siblings while their parents were at work. Meanwhile, even if Joanna became more mature for her sister, she would often be heard saying, "I'll never be a lady." Later, she would be proven correct, as a tragedy would make the sisters never grow up. One morning in May of 1957, the girls and another boy from their neighborhood were walking to their Sunday school. At the same time, a woman who had just lost custody of her children was driving a car. In her sick, twisted mind, taking away other people's children is some sort of her last revenge on the world. It was believed that she purposely crashed the car with the intent to harm the children. Joanna and Jacqueline were almost instantly killed, while the boy was brought to the hospital, but he would be declared dead on arrival. Meanwhile, after killing the 3, the driver would be sent to a mental institution after. When the news was broken to the family, one could not have possibly imagined the pain and torturous feeling of losing a child. The Pollocks were absolutely devastated and grief-stricken. The couple Florence and John grieved differently, and it took time to get used to the pain. For Florence, they have 4 other children she needed to be strong for. Though the loss of 2 of her children could be all she needed to give up in life, her boys still needed to live normally, and life needed to proceed whether she wanted to or not. Florence wanted to set aside the grief, or at least mask it, and try to move on. Meanwhile, John was taking a different approach to the situation. He grew up a Protestant, but then converted to Catholicism. Even if it is against the teachings of his religion, he has always believed in reincarnation. The moment he finished the book about reincarnation, John was all aboard. The guy was trying to merge this phenomenon with his faith. So for him, one way or another, Joanna and Jacqueline will be reborn, preferably to their family. Well, this was probably what provided John Pollock with the most comfort because wishful thinking was his coping mechanism. Florence thought otherwise. For one, she was a rule-abiding Catholic. No reincarnation was preached by Jesus Christ, even if a bunch of subsectors of Christianity revolves around the idea that the Savior would someday be reincarnated to save all of humanity from sins. Anyway, she thought that John constantly saying that he feels a presence in the girls' bedroom and that it was a sign that they were almost home was a disruption to both of their healing process. In fact, after what happened, she's finding it very hard to believe in any form of spirituality. Soon enough, even John started to question his own spirituality too. He went to believe that God let this tragedy happen to his daughters because he believed in reincarnation. It was difficult for everyone in the family. With this faith crisis, emotional wreck, and disagreements, the couple considered divorce. After the girls died, the family receives unexpected angel-sent news. Florence was pregnant. That was all the confirmation John needed. Despite an experienced, practiced professional doctor saying that Florence was carrying one baby, John was adamant that she was carrying twins. It's a wild claim coming from someone who does not feel it in their own womb. Though twins are not medically impossible, only 3% of births in the United States are twins. Neither of the Pollock parents had twins in their relatives or ancestors, so this was unprecedented. Surprise came when Florence gave birth in October of 1958 to not one, but two healthy baby girls. When she looked at John, he probably had that look of, "I told you." The couple decided to name the sisters Jennifer and Jillian. Constant comparison to their older sisters is not the best way to raise these two individuals. What if John was wrong and Jennifer and Jillian are not Jacqueline and Joanna, but they treated them like they were? That would confuse and just distort the hell of the twins' identities, especially since they were very young and susceptible. As a preventative measure, the Pollocks decided not to speak of Joanna and Jacqueline in front of the twins. When the twins were about 9 months old, they moved out of Hexham. Eerily, they just could not ignore some similar features of the twins to their deceased sisters. Years ago, little Jacqueline was probably playing like any other kid when she had fallen into a bucket that left a scar on her forehead. And wouldn't you know it, Jennifer has the same exact white line birthmark on her forehead and the same exact place Jacqueline has hit her head. It only got stranger from here when the twins started to talk and have their own personalities. Jillian would be more outgoing and mature than her twin sister, just like how Joanna was with her younger sister Jacqueline. Jillian took the role of caring for her twin, who was born the same day, if not the same hour as she was. The Pollock twins would then talk about the toys they never had, but the previous sisters did. And when Florence finally showed the dolls to the twins, Jillian took Joanna's and Jennifer took Jacqueline's, even calling them the same names the dolls were first given. When the family visited their previous home, the twins were quick to recognize the place, the areas where they used to play, and even some of their neighbors. Despite Florence's initially intense skepticism of reincarnation, she once saw the twins with Jennifer resting her head on Jillian's lap, talking about the accidents. They recalled the events that happened like it was a memory, how the car came for them, and how much blood came out of Jennifer's head. Being no older than 5, this is a disturbing thing to hear from such young children. It is difficult enough to comprehend, but how much worse would it be to relive this traumatic event if the twins were indeed the reincarnation of their deceased sisters? Once, a car started nearby and the twins hugged each other, afraid that the vehicle would come for them, as how it did to their sisters and resulted in their deaths. These facts were all either very specific coincidences, or John was right and the Pollock sisters indeed reincarnated as twins. But also, only John and Florence were mostly the witnesses, the first analyzers, and the reporters of these occurrences. It is possible that the couple or the family had confirmation bias about the reincarnation of twins, whether intentional or unintentional. Maybe John Pollock insisted on it enough that it unconsciously convinced Florence that the twins were reincarnations, and so the both of them started collecting supporting facts that fit into their narrative and left out the ones that said otherwise. Despite them saying that they have never discussed the sisters with the twins, they lived under the same roof, and Jennifer and Jillian could have been overhearing things from time to time. Also, the parents may have been carefully silent, but the Pollock brothers and their grandma could have mentioned Joanna and Jacqueline. After all, they are loved members of the family. To give the Pollocks the benefit of the doubt, An American psychiatrist named Ian Stevenson suggested that there were details such as Jillian's birthmark which could not be explained by genetics, and like 14 other cases he had studied before, the case of the Pollock sisters could be a case of reincarnation. There were at least 2,500 documented cases of mostly children having detailed knowledge of places they have never been to, people they have never met, or events they did not witness or read about. A common pattern in most of these cases is that as the children reach the age of 5 to 7, they start to forget their alleged past lives. Likewise, Jillian and Jennifer Pollock eventually would soon forget these alleged memories and continue to live normal lives. The world was cruel to young Joanna and Jacqueline, who barely had the chance to live their lives before it was taken all too abruptly. Did the sisters' souls take another chance in life through their younger sisters in hopes of finally providing their family closure? Or was this narrative constructed by the Pollocks to help cope with the tragic event? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. In the next story, Maria Gomez Pereira discovered a strange discoloration on the kitchen's concrete floor. The following day, it darkened and started to take shape, eventually revealing a man's face. Find out how in the deep heart of southern Spain, mysterious faces suddenly appeared on the floor of the Pereira house. Until then, Puppet out!